Hello. So, what does your child eat, and what do you feed them on a typical day?
Well, when my kids have school in the morning, I like to feed them a really good breakfast so they're sustained through the day. I always pick out either cold cereal, eggs, pancakes, waffles, and always have sliced fruit, oranges, apples, or bananas available, and grapes. And if I'm making eggs, I like to put in a little chopped spinach and tomatoes or cheese.
Nice. Sounds nice and healthy. So, are you concerned about processed foods, sodium, sugar, food being organic or GMO?
Oh my gosh, such a huge priority in my life. I try never to buy GMO food, especially farm fish. I think it has made a huge difference on the nutrients in the food that's supplied. Sodium, gosh, I look really, really carefully on products labeled to make sure I'm getting products that are low in sodium. I am outraged when I see products with over 200 grams of sodium in the per serving. So I put those back on the shelf. And what was the other one? GMO,
Sugar,
sodium,
organic.
sugar. Well, hmm, do love donuts, but try not to eat them too often. They're really full of sugar and fat. But everything in moderation. Um, I look very closely on the yogurt labels and try to get the ones with the lowest amount of sugar. But the only problem is I'm the only one that eats um, the plain yogurt, which has really low amounts of sugar. But most of my family likes the 24 grams, 25 grams of sugar. Try to not purchase the ones that are above 25 grams of sugar. Wow. And cold cereal, I like to buy cereals that are lower than 10 grams of sugar, but the ones that get eaten most often are the Special K and Raisin Bran, and those are really high in sugar.
I see
Um,
that. Well,
so,
do you have any concerns about childhood obesity or undernutrition?
oh my gosh, I think it's so amazing how the waistlines of Americans have grown, and I think that's really due to the fact that there's a high availability of foods made with corn and sugar and high fructose corn syrup, which are really cheap foods to purchase. And unfortunately, there's a lot of individuals that eat those foods because that's what their budget allows. Um, so it's a bummer. Yeah, obesity
Yeah.
is a huge problem in the U.S.
Well, does your child take any supplements?
I'm a big proponent for salmon oil, fish oil, and I try to get fish oil from the Nordic Sea as opposed to ones that are not labeled where their sources are from. Because I think if you just get a quote unquote fish oil and it's from a farm fish, I don't think you're getting the nutrients that a Norwegian or cold water salmon fish oil would give you. Vitamin D, I think, is important depending on the time of year, making sure that you have enough vitamin D in your diet. And I try to get um, most of our vitamins through our choices of vegetables. So,
Wow, you're a healthy mama. So,
well, I
did
have to
you?
say, can I interject here? I really believe that you are what you eat, and we're supposed to get 10 servings of vegetables a day. So, how do you get them? Maybe I chop them up. So, I'm really big on making meals with a lot of vegetables
So,
in them.
when you did have children a few years ago, did you breastfeed or use formula feed or mix the two? And why?
Okay, so my first child, I'll be a little detailed here because I think it's really interesting. I breastfed until he was 5 months old, and then I got a cold from him, and I took cold medication. And it was such a bummer because it absolutely dried me up. So he was actually my shortest breastfed child. Um, my second child, I breastfed for a year and switched him over to milk, and he was very, very allergic to it. As and he was allergic to soy, so that was a huge issue. My third child, I breastfed until I didn't want it anymore, and my youngest breastfed forever.
What a healthy child. So, what are the issues surrounding child nutrition today that concern you?
I think really just the fact that I think we have two types of eaters. We have those that are on the low income bracket and misinformed or uninformed and aren't getting the nutritional supplements. And that's where you see a lot of obesity, especially in the southeast of the United States. And I think those that are, I mean, you can totally see healthy environments. Southern California has a really fit environment, really healthy atmosphere, as do I think where we live right now. Um, in the Bay Area, I just think there's pockets of availability of really fresh food. If you go to the Midwest, I don't think they have the availability that we do. And if you go in different parts of the world, they don't have the fresh food and resources that we're so blessed with.
Definitely. So, what part of nutrition do you wish you knew more about as a parent?
Well, I wish that I started feeding my kids more vegetables and fruits a long time ago. It wasn't until most of my kids were in high school that I learned about how the importance of fresh fruits and vegetables in our diet. Or actually, they don't have to necessarily be fresh. And then when my kids were really, really little, I was so good at preparing a full meal. I always had a grain, a protein, a vegetable, and I always had a dessert. But as my kids grew, I learned very quickly that that part of the meal could be omitted. So I don't often have dessert anymore, which is a bummer.